Presiding over Monday's cabinet meeting following his latest diplomatic agenda in New York, President Yoon
South Korea's economy will grow.
The central bank has kept its key interest rate unchanged. Mission complete. Foreign rocket booty South Korea. Seoul is rallying in hopes of bringing the World Expo 2030. Arirang.
In our headlines on this Thursday, February 27th, here in South Korea. Trade Minister An Deok-gun is in Washington, D.C. to seek Korea's exemption from the 25% U.S. tariff on steel and aluminium imports slated to start in mid-March, and exclusion from reciprocal tariffs set to go into effect in April. And at the UN nuclear disarmament talks in Geneva, South Korea, Japan and the US call for the complete denuclearization of North Korea, reaffirming that the regime will never be recognized as a nuclear weapons state. Meanwhile, the Constitutional Court rules that acting President Choi Sang-mok violated the Constitution by holding back the appointment of the Parliament's Justice nominee Ma Eun-hyuk to its bench. Trade Minister An Deok-gun is in Washington, D.C. for talks with U.S. officials as a number of Trump tariffs are poised to go into effect in the weeks ahead. Our Lee Seung-jae starts us off.
South Korea's Industry Minister An Deok-gun expressed confidence that his upcoming talks with U.S. trade officials will be constructive, adding that the two sides will be able to find win-win alternatives amid Trump administration tariff plans. Speaking to reporters upon arriving at the Dulles International Airport on Wednesday, Minister An said that Seoul and Washington will be able to dispel various misunderstandings, as most of the trade issues have been issued through past FTA renegotiations.
We are in a situation where most of the issues, including non-tariff barriers, have been addressed in past FTA renegotiations. Through specific consultations with the US side, I believe that we can dispel various misunderstandings and craft a constructive alternative.
The industry minister also emphasized that his visit to Washington is aimed at finding the best option to protect South Korean businesses while deepening bilateral partnership with the US on strategic industrial sectors. He also said that he feels a great sense of responsibility as the matter is of great national interest. An cited the handling of the previous Biden administration's Inflation Reduction Act, saying that Seoul will be able to find a constructive win-win alternative with the current U.S. administration. The minister will hold talks with U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick during his visit, with plans to discuss U.S. tariffs and bilateral cooperation in the shipbuilding industry, cutting-edge industries, energy, and other strategic sectors. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened to impose a 25% tariff on imports from the European Union, accusing the bloc of being created to cheat the U.S. Addressing the White House press corps, Trump claimed an announcement would be made very soon, adding that the tariffs will be centered on cars and other goods. The European Commission, for its part, has rejected Trump's accusation, adding that the creation of the regional bloc had in fact facilitated business ventures in Europe for American companies. The Commission also vowed to respond firmly and immediately against unjustified tariffs. The EU currently has in place a 10% tariff on American vehicle imports, which is 4 times higher than the US tariff on European passenger car imports. The US nonetheless already has a 25% tariff on imported pickup trucks. The phrase denuclearization of North Korea will be promoted by South Korea and the U.S. in acknowledgement of the fact that it is not the Korean Peninsula that is illicitly pursuing nuclear weapons, but simply Pyongyang. Our Kim Bo-kyung has more.
Seoul and Washington have agreed to use the term denuclearization of North Korea instead of denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula when addressing the North Korean nuclear issue. South Korean ambassador to the U.S., Cho Hyun-dong, made this announcement during a monthly meeting of South Korean correspondents in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday. As Seoul does not have nuclear weapons, the two expressions largely convey the same purpose of dismantling Pyongyang's nuclear program. However, denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula holds the broader meaning of not only ridding North Korea of its nuclear program, but also the possibility of South Korea going nuclear or hosting U.S. tactical nuclear weapons. To make the meaning clearer, Second Trump administration has decided to use the expression the denuclearization of North Korea in a consistent manner. Following the agreement, Seoul's top envoy to the U.S. added that the term was used in documents issued during high-level meetings, including the U.S.-Japan summit and the trilateral foreign ministers meeting between South Korea, the U.S., and Japan. Meanwhile, South Korea, the U.S., and Japan raised voices together at a UN conference on disarmament in Geneva, condemning North Korea's military provocations and calling for its complete denuclearization, while pointing out that Pyongyang is continuing its reckless provocations in blatant violation of relevant UN Security Council resolutions. The three countries said the international community is resolute that Pyongyang will never have the status of a nuclear weapon state. The North Korean representative dismissed the statement, calling it outdated and meaningless. Calling denuclearization an absurd fantasy, he blamed U.S. and its allies' military actions as main cause of instability on the peninsula, and said that North Korea's status as a full-fledged nuclear state will remain an undeniable reality. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
A senior U.S. official has brushed aside concerns of South Korea being sidelined from potential denuclearization talks with North Korea. U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary for East Asian and Pacific Affairs Kevin Kim also reaffirmed the Trump administration's commitment to issues on the Korean Peninsula. Remarks to this end were shared at the U.S. Embassy here in Seoul earlier on Wednesday, and they come amid the political turmoil here in South Korea. Starting early this month, North Korea has been deploying troops again to the front lines of the battle in Kursk. Now, this is according to the National Intelligence Service earlier on this Thursday. Now, there appears to have been a reinforcement in the deployment, but intelligence authorities here have yet to confirm its size. Sources, for their part, have suggested over 1,000 more soldiers being sent between January and February. Back last October, North Korea sent some 11,000 soldiers to Russia. Meanwhile, a senior official at the Unification Ministry here says the additional troop deployment aligns with the rotation of forces in maintaining combat readiness. The South Korean Navy's new Task Fleet Command has conducted its first major maritime exercise since its launch earlier this month. The exercise included 9 warships, including the 7,600-ton Sejong, the Great Destroyer, 1 submarine and 13 aircraft in and above waters off South Korea's western and southern coasts. The 3-day drills that lasted until this Thursday saw troops engaged in various sessions, including live fire training and anti-submarine warfare. The Sejong, the Great Destroyer, also engaged in ballistic missile detection and tracking drills to strengthen its capabilities against North Korean missile threats. Acting President Choi Sang-mok's decision to hold back the appointment of Justice nominee Ma Eun-hyuk stands in breach of the Parliament's authority to recommend Constitutional Court justices. Now, that is the verdict reached by the court in response to a parliamentary lawsuit against Acting President Choi Sang-mok. Our Oh Soo-young covers this ruling and its broader implications.
The Constitutional Court has ruled that Acting President Choi Sang-mok's decision to withhold the appointment of Justice nominee Ma Eun-hyuk was unconstitutional, violating the National Assembly's authority to select Constitutional Court justices. On Thursday, the court announced its verdict that Choi does not have the discretion to review or reject justices elected by the National Assembly, reaffirming that the legislative selection power is independent and substantive. Choi had appointed 2 out of 3 justices put forward by the Assembly in December last year, but deferred Ma Eun-hyuk's appointment, calling for bipartisan agreement first. At the same time, the court dismissed the request from the National Assembly Speaker to confirm Ma's status as a justice or order his immediate appointment, citing legal limitations. Following the ruling, Choi is now under significant pressure to appoint Ma Eun-hyuk, a left-leaning judge recommended by the opposition Democratic Party. His appointment is politically sensitive, as he would be the 5th progressive justice on a 9-member bench. Choi's office said the acting president would respect the court's decision and would look carefully into the verdict, but couldn't comment on if or when Ma would be appointed. If Ma is soon instated, various complications could arise in President Yoon's impeachment trial, as the court would then decide whether or not he will participate in the deliberation process. Given that Yoon's trial hearings concluded this week, the court could exclude Ma. Even if Ma is included, experts say he might choose to recuse himself to avoid controversy and maintain the current 8-member bench. But if he participates, the court would have to decide whether Ma should conduct a brief review of trial materials or hold a retrial process, which involves a more comprehensive examination with more hearings. The latter could significantly delay the ruling, which is currently expected in mid-March. President Yoon's legal team on Thursday strongly condemned the court's decision, calling it politically motivated and aimed at securing a 6-vote majority to uphold Yoon's impeachment. Yoon's team raised concerns over Ma Eun-hyuk's past affiliation with progressive legal groups, which they said undermines judicial neutrality. They claim that acting President Choi is not legally bound to appoint Ma and should conduct a thorough administrative review before making a final decision. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, at the National Assembly, lawmakers across the aisle locked horns over a bill paving the path for a special probe into allegations of election interference by President Yoon Suk-yeol and First Lady Kim Gun-hee through a political broker called Myung Tae-gyun. I have our correspondent Shin Ha-young standing by live on the line with details. Ha-young, welcome. Now, I hear the bill was passed by the Parliament today, Ha-young.
You're right, Sunny. Just a few hours ago, the main opposition Democratic Party, with support from minor parties, unilaterally passed a special counsel bill to investigate President Yoon and First Lady Kim for their alleged election interference through Myung Tae-gyun. And it passed with 182 votes in favor, 91 against, and 1 abstention. And Myung is accused of conducting public opinion polls favorable to Yoon ahead of the last presidential race and soliciting his support in the People Power Party's nomination process during the 2022 parliamentary by-elections. And last year, a phone call between Yoon and Myung surfaced where they discussed the candidacy of a then upcoming by-election, something that is illegal. And ahead of the plenary session today, DP Floor Leader Park Chan-dae said the special counsel bill was key to uncovering the truth behind the December 3rd declaration of martial law and stressing the need to restore the country and democracy. Take a listen.
There is already overwhelming evidence of serious crimes involving Yoon Suk-yeol, Kim Gun-hee, and Myung Tae-gyun. The probe is about fixing the country, not political fighting.
Ahead of the vote, the ruling PPP reached a party consensus to oppose the bill and decided to request acting President Choi Sang-mok to veto it if the opposition pushes it through. And its floor leader Kwon Sung-dong called the appointment of a special counsel a political move for an early election. Take a listen.
The special counsel bill is a political scheme by Myung Tae-gyun and the Democratic Party. The DP claims the case was a trigger for a martial law declaration, but it's just a baseless delusion.
The PPP also criticized the bill for targeting the party's entire procedure for elections and for suggesting it could investigate all ruling party members at any time.
Right, I see. And Hang, before you go, do tell us about the postponement of the vote on the revision of the Commercial Act.
Well, Sunny, Assembly Speaker Woo Won-sik decided to hold off on the Commercial Act amendment at today's plenary session, citing the need for more talks due to the sharp divide between the parties. Let's listen.
As the Speaker, I've decided not to put down the revision of the Commercial Act at today's plenary session to encourage more talks between the parties. I urge the parties to keep discussing it until the next session.
The amendment expands the company director's duty to act in good faith, requiring them to serve both the company and its shareholders' interests. And the PPP has criticized the amendment, claiming it will lead to endless lawsuits and disrupt businesses, even though the revision is meant to protect shareholders. And the DP, which has been pushing the amendment, expressed regret over the delay. And Speaker Woo said the voting deadline would be determined as the negotiations progress. And that's all I have for this hour. Back to you, Sunny.
All right, Hayoung, thank you for that coverage. That was our political correspondent Shin Hayoung with the latest at the Parliament. Moving forward then, Korea's southern port city of Busan is hosting an annual drone show that marks its 10th birthday this year, with much emphasis on drones for defense. Our business correspondent Moon Hae-ryun was there.
When you think of a drone, what image comes to mind? For many, it's a small full-propeller device hovering in the air. But what truly defines a drone is not its shape or size. It's the fact that it operates without a pilot on board. This makes drones invaluable across various sectors, a point underscored at Drone Show Korea 2025, Asia's largest drone exhibition. Marking its 10th anniversary this year, the event placed a strong emphasis on the growing role of drones in defense and security, as these unmanned systems become increasingly central to modern warfare. The wars in Ukraine and Gaza have underscored the growing importance of drones in modern warfare, and South Korea is also ramping up its use of drone technology within its military. The Republic of Korea Army showcased surveillance drones designed for reconnaissance missions, while the Republic of Korea Navy unveiled unmanned underwater vehicles capable of navigating restricted and high-risk areas. The Air Force showed its vision for unmanned systems integrated with artificial intelligence, where drones can reduce casualties and address manpower shortages with the country's declining birth rate.
This manned and unmanned combat aircraft system enhances pilot survivability, maximizes operational efficiency, and enables a single aircraft to carry out the missions of 6 or 7 units. As a result, it is considered a game-changer in future warfare. Recognizing its strategic importance, South Korea is investing significant effort and resources into its development.
South Korean drones are also gaining popularity around the world, such as in Southeast Asia, as they search for alternatives to cheap Chinese drones, with security issues becoming more prominent. This company not only develops surveillance and attack drones for the Korean Army, but also exports smaller drones to the Philippines, where they're used to make the streets safer. Delivery drones that are capable of lifting heavy equipment to high altitudes are also popular overseas, with this company supplying them to film sets in Hollywood and to the Jordanian armed forces.
The face of future warfare is beginning to change as drones become increasingly more autonomous and able to carry out a variety of functions. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
And Samsung Electronics and LG Electronics dominated this year's iF Design Award, one of the most prestigious awards in the global design industry. Organized by Germany's International Forum Design since 1953, the award evaluates 9 categories, including product design, packaging, and user experience. Samsung won 58 awards, including 2 gold awards for an AI home robot and a reusable packaging cloth. Polly, the robot, helps with scheduling and controlling household appliances, among other tasks, while Pojagi is a reusable packaging cloth inspired by traditional Korean wrapping, allowing products of different shapes to be wrapped easily. LG won 36 awards, including the Gold Award for the world's first wireless transparent screen television, the LG Signature OLED T. In other news, a piece of royal heritage has finally returned home in about 100 years. Our uni covers its journey back and its importance.
The centuries-old piece of royal heritage has finally made its way back home. This is believed to have been the nameplate of Seonwonjeon Hall within the grounds of Gyeongbokgung Palace, one of the 4 main royal palaces of the Joseon dynasty. Seonwon means the origin of jade. The hall was considered the most sacred hall within the palace, home to the portraits of past kings and royal rituals. This month, the Korea Heritage Service successfully repatriated the nameplate from Japan. It is unclear how the plaque ended up there, but it's believed to have been taken by the first Japanese Governor-General of Korea in the early 1900s, during the Japanese colonial period.
The plaque features gold letters on a black lacquered background, with intricately carved cloud patterns on the frame, featuring its prestigious significance and exceptional artistic quality.
The nameplate was first publicly discovered in 2023 when it appeared at a Japanese antique auction. The Korea Heritage Service and the Overseas Cultural Heritage Foundation were quick to take action. The return of this priceless cultural heritage was made possible through negotiations and sponsorship from gaming giant Riot Games.
For the past 12 years, Riot Games has supported the protection and return of Korean cultural heritage. As a company shaping modern culture, we believe preserving Korea's heritage holds great significance for everyone, including our players and Riot Games.
The Gyeongbokgung Palace's Seonwonjeon nameplate will be studied and managed at the National Palace Museum of Korea in Seoul, with plans for in-depth research and future exhibitions to further honor its historical significance. 이은희, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories around the globe. The Palestinian militant group Hamas has handed over the bodies of 4 Israeli hostages to the Red Cross early on Thursday, just days before the first phase of the truce comes to an end. In return, Israel has also begun to release Palestinian prisoners from Ofar prison in the occupied West Bank. Israel has agreed to release 602 Palestinian prisoners, a move that was initially planned for last weekend but later postponed. Under the truce agreement that began on February 19th, Hamas released 6 hostages on this past Saturday. However, Israel delayed the prisoner release due to what it described as the mistreatment and humiliation of the freed hostages during the handover process. Through mediators, both sides have now agreed to proceed with the remaining prisoner and hostage exchanges. According to the office of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the upcoming transfer will take place without any special ceremonies. At least 18 people have been killed and 23 others injured after a double-decker tour bus overturned in eastern Thailand. The crash occurred early Wednesday local time after the bus lost control due to a brake failure and plunged down a slope. A total of 49 adults were on board traveling as part of an educational tour. Thai Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra extended her sympathies to the victims' families and stated that an investigation was underway. Thailand's Ministry of Transport has also announced that it will work with police to investigate the incident and strengthen inspections to guarantee that all public transportation vehicles meet safety standards. Turning to the United States, amid a growing measles outbreak, Texas has reported its first child fatality from the disease. This marks the first measles-related death in the U.S. in nearly a decade, with the last case occurring in Washington state in 2015. According to the Texas Department of Health on Tuesday, the number of reported measles cases in West Texas has risen to 124, an increase of more than 30 cases since late last week. The highest infection rates have been observed among children aged 5 to 17. So far, a total of 18 people have been hospitalized due to the outbreak, and all of them were unvaccinated. Actress Michelle Trachtenberg, best known for her roles in Gossip Girl and other hit TV dramas, has died at the age of 39. She was found dead in her New York apartment on Wednesday morning local time. The exact cause of death remains under investigation. According to police, no signs of foul play were detected, but Trachtenberg had recently undergone a liver transplant and may have suffered complications. Born in New York in 1985, Trachtenberg began her career as a child actress and later gained widespread recognition for her roles in Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Gossip Girl. Yoon Se-young, Arirang News.
It was still cold this morning, but the temperature rose significantly in the middle of the day, widening the daily temperature differences to around 14 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow, the temperature differences will be nearly 10 degrees, with 3 degrees in the morning and 12 degrees during the day in Seoul. The air quality is not expected to be good tomorrow. It's because dust accumulates as the atmosphere is somewhat stagnant as the temperature rises. In addition, there is a possibility of additional smoke from tomorrow afternoon. This bad air quality will be relieved as rain clouds come around the day after tomorrow. Tomorrow, most areas will start off above 0 degrees, with Daejeon and Gyeongju at 2 degrees Celsius. Daily highs will rise up to 14 degrees in Daejeon and Gwangju and 17 degrees in Daegu. Heavy rain for spring is expected during the 3일절 holiday, and there's a possibility of heavy snow in the eastern parts of Gangwon-do province. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. Right, those are the top stories at this hour here in South Korea. Thank you for watching, and do stay tuned for our panel discussion.
How to survive in Korea. Barbecue restaurants. Step 1. Taking care of your clothes. Put your jacket in the plastic bag. Seal it tight. If the stool flips open, store your clothes inside. Wearing light colors? Grab an apron. It's the best defense against oil splatter and smoke. Step 2. Bottomless side dishes. Basic side dishes at a barbecue restaurant. Eat, and eat as much as you want. Side dishes come with free refills. Oh, and if you don't see this sign, just ask, 사장님, 여기 밑반찬 좀 더 주세요. Simple, isn't it? Step 3. Grilling meat. There are various kinds of samgyeopsal in Korea. Place the meat on the grill. Turn it over when golden. And again when it looks done. Again and again and again. Step 4. Sam style. You aren't taking bites of sam like a taco, are you? In Korea, we have it in one bite. A pro tip here. Add only as much as you can handle in a bite. Gotta avoid awkward situations. Step 5. Enjoy the perks. After the meal, enjoy the perks offered as a Korean restaurant. Fabric refreshers get rid of the barbecue smell, while mint candies freshen your breath. Did you survive the barbecue restaurant? Hang on. Are you here with someone you want to impress? Then let's skip the garlic. Who knows what will happen?
A country where traditional and modern cultures coexist.
Where you can explore spectacular landscapes and nature.
Savor the delights of traveling at every turn.
Where? Korea, of course.
There are some must-visit places in Korea. Ones that appear in every tour guidebook: Hangang River, Gyeongbokgung Palace from the Joseon Dynasty, and...
Yes, these are essentials, but I want to go somewhere a little different. I don't have to follow the guidebook. For example, filming locations for K-pop music videos or K-dramas and movies.
Traveling is all about taking it slow. A long walk at your own pace or even zoning out somewhere quiet. Doesn't it sound relaxing?
You travel for the experience, trying something new in a foreign place, de-stressing and making lifetime memories, taking tons of pictures along the way.
70% of the Korean territory is mountainous. Naturally, hiking is a very popular pastime in Korea. Not your kind of activity? Trust me, the view will make the effort worth it. Just catch your breath by the cold stream in the valley.
Korea is surrounded by the sea on three sides. From the beach, you can enjoy a wide open view as well as various water activities. But the riverside is great too. There's plenty to see and do.
If you're in Korea, you can't miss the night view full of dazzling lights.
Yes, even the same place can have a totally different vibe at night.
Want to make unforgettable memories?
How about traveling to all corners of Korea? Join us next time to explore more about Korean culture.
A British daily says Trump tariffs are pushing investors to purchase entertainment stocks, believing them to be safe from a brewing global trade war. With more on Press Perspective today. Hello and welcome to Thursday's edition of Press Perspective. It's February 27th here in Seoul. I'm Min Sun-hee. Today we touch upon the impact of Trump tariffs on entertainment stocks here in South Korea. Now for more on this and other K-pop related headlines, I have Chloe Bogno with French broadcaster France 24 here in the studio. Chloe, it's great to see you again.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I also have Bernie Jo, the head of DFSB Collective, a Korean music distribution company, with the pundit's take on today's topic. Bernie, it's a pleasure to have you back.
Oh, it's good to be back. Thank you for having me.
Right, Chloe, we'll start with you. Let's begin with details of the article published by The Guardian with regard to Korean entertainment stocks.
Yeah, so it was published by Justin McCurry, who's a correspondent for The Guardian. It published this month. And his main point on this article is saying that with the tariff war that's been started by Donald Trump since he arrived back in the presidency in the United States, the investors are trying to fly to safer assets. And what Justin McCurry is saying in his article is that K-pop is not considered as one of the safest places to invest. And he described it as a safe haven. So it's true that K-pop is already one of South Korea cultural, most successful cultural exports product. They have been gaining for South Korea almost $900 million in 2023. It's very big exportation. It's also quite a nice step up since the year before. So it was the raise was 1/3 more than the 2022, and that's according to Korea Culture and Tourism Institute. So why did Justin say that in his article that the investors are interested in K-pop is that he had a look at the shares of South Korea and the biggest entertainment group for the K-pop, so the Big Four. And what he was saying is that recently, so he took the numbers in mid-February, but he said that this is the highest levels for their shares that we have seen in 1 year. So, and for some of them, it's even more than that. So that's what he was saying is that JYP Entertainment had a raise of plus 6.09%, IBE at plus 3.15%. Those are like record price shares. And same for SM Entertainment and YG Entertainment. He said they came close to their highest yearly highs. So the causes for that, what he's saying is mostly because of Trump global tariff wars, especially recently on steel, for example. And also, what he's saying is that we are seeing, with the BTS comeback, with Blackpink World Tour era, we are seeing a new era of, you know, good time maybe for K-pop coming up. And that's the investors are seeing that too.
Right, now staying with what Chloe just said, Bernie, the article by The Guardian, it does say that the aggressive purchasing, that's a direct quote from the article, of entertainment stocks was also driven by, like she said, expectations that K-pop would enter a new boom. What more can you add?
Well, I think, you know, I read the article and I've been asked to talk a lot about it, and I do agree, but I don't think the argument is as simple as it seems. I think in many ways, I think the upswing in all the K-pop stocks is not so much just a direct result of Donald Trump throwing down. I think it has to do more with sort of a convergence, a confluence of coincidence. A lot of very positive factors all look together. People start connecting the dots. So for instance, number one, the FX rate. The fact that K-pop is one of the biggest exports out of Korea, and any artist, any company making money overseas is going to see an automatic spike in revenues just on the FX rates alone. The second thing is that there are rumors that the China music market is going to open, and China is a big, huge market for K-pop, and so the ability to re-enter very soon, a lot of positive vibes on that front. And then the other thing is just the numbers, the statistics. A lot of the year-end reports came out from whether it be Billboard magazine or the IFPI, and K-pop, forget being Korean, it's just pop music now. 17 out of the best-selling albums in the world last year were K-pop. 7 out of the top 10 best-selling compact discs in the US Billboard charts were K-pop. CDs no longer stand for compact discs, it stands for chart dominance. And then the fact that there's now data showing that K-pop fans spend more money than any other fan of any other US music genre, whether it's at concerts buying merchandise to physical music goods. So when you add all of that up, that's why you're starting to see the stocks not just spike, but just continue to go higher. And taking into consideration Donald Trump going after anything politically, you know, sensitive to flex, pop culture is something he kind of overlooked. Because right now, Korean pop culture exports is the second biggest consumer goods exports behind automobiles. So while he was putting out this game plan, a little bit of a miss, but you know, for now, we'll take it.
Right, and against this backdrop, Bernie, what can you tell us about this year's plans by Korea's 4 major entertainment agencies, including, of course, HYBE, YG, SM, and JYP?
Well, you know, 30 minutes isn't going to be enough time, but I think, you know, as much as we call them the Big Four, I like to call them the Fab Four, a little shout out and throw out to the Beatles. But what's really interesting about these 4 leading Korean music companies is their annual revenues are bigger than entire music economies in Asia and Europe. And so when we talk about how big they are, we can't just look at them as companies. They're bigger than music economies, music markets. And when we look at how they're making their money, yes, they have a steady stream of boy bands and girl bands and trainees and new solo acts. But what I think is more interesting is what we're seeing as of late, and we're starting to see the fruition of these efforts now, is not just the export of the K-pop music, but the K-pop music business model. And so, for instance, right now, HYBE, JYP, and SM all have non-Korean K-pop trained boy bands and girl bands and artists starting to come out into the market, starting to be debuted, some of them, you know, now going for round 2. And so it'll be interesting to see if the K-pop business model translates into success. And so far, signs are still early. It's very much a work in progress. But for me, this is what I'm looking forward to in 2025, is to see if K-pop crosses over, not just from an audio or visual standpoint, but from a logistics, a training, and a financial standpoint as well.
Right, and K-pop, Chloe, it was the most popular South Korea-related content in Asia, in Asia, Europe, and Latin America, according to findings by the Culture Ministry for last year, while K-food was popular in North America and Africa. How do you explain the popularity of K-pop in Europe, in France, where you're from?
Yeah, so as you said, the Ministry of Culture actually did a study on all the contents that were related to K-pop, K-food, any Hallyu content. So either in media or also on social medias as well. And what they show is that Europe is the second the second area that's making the most content. So it was nearly 25% of all the global content made about Hallyu came from Europe. So why is it so popular in France, but in Europe in general? It's hard to say because there is no specific studies yet on why is K-pop so popular to the youngest. So here it's my own guesses that I'm taking is possible causes would be, first of all, the demographic. So Europe, you still have a lot of young people, and we know that the audience for K-pop is quite young. So if you look at Spotify listeners of K-pop, so that's mostly for European there, they are saying that the listeners are mostly aged between 18 and 24 years old. There is also another thing that is, according to the fans, European fans, what they do like is that K-pop artists are trying to make it, they are trying to be more available for the fans, and they do like this relationship that they don't get with more traditional European artists. The other thing also is obviously that K-pop is quite a fresh air. Either in the aesthetic, in the clip, in the music, everything. And I feel like European young are growing up with a lot of different music anyway. Like in France, I would grow up with obviously French bands, but also punk rock from Britain or techno music from Germany. So, we are used to listening from music from all over the places. So getting K-pop in was not weird for younger generation and younger listeners because they're used to have all the music that are not in their language or in their cultural sphere. So that's what I would say. And then, as Bernie just said, like the K-pop labels are also playing with it, trying to get foreign groups or at least foreign artists into K-pop bands to appeal a bit more to the fans as well.
Right. Bernie, with regard to K-pop in the US, while this year's Grammy Awards earlier this month included some of the industry's most talented artists, K-pop itself, it was visibly absent. Now, there's been a lot of talk about the reasons behind this. What are your thoughts?
I listen to a lot of industry insiders, and obviously I read a lot of sort of what the fans have to say. And I think time and time again, every year, the same facts need to be just spelled out. Number one, the Grammy Awards, it's a U.S. music award show. So it's very focused on generally U.S./Western/English-speaking language songs, artist albums. Two, it's not a popularity contest for fans. If it were, the Grammys would be overrun by K-pop. 11 out of 10 would be K-pop winners. But the truth is that it's industry insiders who vote, and they're voting amongst their peers and their colleagues. And again, I think it's if people want some context, it's no different than, say, the Academy Awards, the Oscars in the film industry. And people, for whatever reason, understand and more importantly, respect that that's the system, that's how it's built, and that's the way it's supposed to be. I think that, yes, this might have been for some fans an off year because they didn't see any nominees or any performances, but I'm really excited for some of the songs that have been coming out this year that I think are prime for Grammy nominations for next year. So I think next year is going to be a good year, whether it's Rosé with Apatu or G-Dragon with Power, or Lisa with a bunch of singles she's been featuring with a bunch of Grammy-nominated and Grammy Award-winning artists, and Jenny as well. So there's a whole laundry list of, I think, really positive signs for next year. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, and again, I might get myself in trouble for saying this, is that when some of these fans push too hard and try too hard to kind of manifest this vision that their favorite act should be entitled to win a Grammy, that heated, over-the-top enthusiasm to basically harass, threaten certain people in the industry, be it reporters or producers or DJs or whoever, it backfires. And there's a term for it, and I heard this from some media friends of mine in the US. People are so scared to talk negatively about certain K-pop acts. I think I'm going to give it away, but they call it BTSD because it's so stressful to deal with these angry mobs of K-pop fans. And as much as, you know, they have a passion to see their favorite artist get nominated and win, sometimes if you go too hard and you try too hard, it might actually have the exact opposite effect. And so I think that's something that needs to be considered, that there's a system, respect it to whatever it's worth. And again, I think history proves a lot of lessons. Hip-hop took decades before it got mainstream recognition and started winning the mainstream awards. And K-pop fans, you know, you gotta love them, but what they're asking for is what hip-hop did in decades. They want it to happen in a matter of a few years. So patience, but I don't want to wait 20 years. I think it's going to happen sooner, but the point is, it's going to take a while to get there, and we're moving in the right direction.
Same with K-pop in the US, Bernie. I heard one K-pop group canceled its tour in North America owing to visa issues.
Yeah, no.
Tell us a bit more about that.
This is unfortunate. You know, Card, one of, I think, you know, the best co-ed K-pop bands out there. You know, you don't see them and hear them much in Korea for good reason, because they're always touring. They're always touring, whether it be in Europe, Latin America, North America. So they're tested talents that know how to tour. And yet they ran into problems getting a working visa to tour the US. And they've done this tour many times. And look, I've run a business and I've dealt with this firsthand personally. It's very frustrating getting a visa because even though you do all the paperwork and you pay all the fees, sometimes they go through, sometimes it goes off the rails and you know, sideways for reasons that are not explained, and you can't even ask. And you know, credit where credit's due, the promoter, realizing that this, you know, the situation's going to get dire, had to make a very difficult choice, which is to cancel the tour. But that was the right thing to do. But it should not even have happened, because, and again, you know, I've noticed for me and for the artists that I work with, getting visas getting so hard and harder and harder, more expensive, more unpredictable. It almost feels like it's harder to get a U.S. touring visa, working visa, than to apply to a college or university or whatnot. And I've done so many of these applications, but it's hard to predict what's going to hit, what's going to miss. But unfortunately, we're hearing more and more stories of visas just not being processed in a timely manner, and these things happen. And you know, a lot of it, some of it's public, a lot of it's not public, but it's a very real problem in the industry.
All right, very sad for the fans as well then. Despite the hurdles then faced by some K-pop groups trying to tour the US, as Bernie mentioned earlier, Chloe, the K-entertainment industry may enjoy greater inroads into neighboring China. Do tell us more about that.
Yeah, so as we were saying before, the boom could also happen thanks to China, who is reportedly preparing to lift the Hallyu ban. So this ban is actually restriction on South Korean cultural products, so that would be K-drama, K-pop, but also movies or video game to be imported in China. So this is a ban that was effective since 2017. It was actually retaliation in the context of very strong hardship, geopolitical tensions between the two countries. The thing is, this ban was never officially acknowledged, but it is said that it was getting, it's hard, and there were a lot of obstacles to get any cultural product from South Korea to be imported and to get the approbation to get imported into China. So this end of the ban could come as early as May 2025, so this year. This is actually one of the diplomats from China who say that the first steps are actually being taken to expand the cultural exchange between the two countries, and that there's the aim to restore, like fully resume cultural cooperation by May this year. So it's interesting to see that China, before the ban, was responsible for about a fifth of South Korean entertainment companies' revenue, and so there's an institute who also make estimation that it caused damage up to $15.3 billion for the Korean industries in 2026-27 when the ban was established. So if China and the Chinese market is opening again to K-pop and Hallyu related content, that would be like a nice gush of air for the industry.
Right, for sure. Chloe, do you suppose renewed cultural exchanges between Seoul and Beijing may lead to perhaps productive interactions between the two on other fronts, like?
Yeah, I think it's possible. So first of all, we have seen earlier last year when the diplomatic ties started again, like getting stronger with China, between South Korea and China, there was a lot of discussion about cultural exchanges, but also educational exchanges, and then more like industrial. So we already know that the two countries want to be able to maim the relationship and get the ties better. And that was even before Donald Trump came back. And again, we're circling back to the global tariff war. But it's true that with the US being not such a reliable ally, then South Korea might want to turn to China for multiple fields. So that could be cultural, but that could also be economical fields. And so I do feel that it could happen. But then we have to be careful, because in the current situation, there is also a little problem, that is the anti-China sentiment that has been raised by some of the protesters outside here who have been protesting against the impeachment for the President Yoon. And the ambassador of China here in South Korea has been warning against it, saying that it was obviously a tiny minority, but that the disruptive influence could have, and I'm quoting him, a significant impact on the development of the relationship between the two countries. So that would be, for me, the main drawback that could happen there.
Right then. Meanwhile, Bernie, back on the K-pop front, you mentioned earlier about the remarkable advances by K-pop last year in terms of record sales and rankings. If I were to ask you to highlight the top 3 K-pop moments of the year 2024, what would you choose to highlight?
You know, I think the word highlight is maybe a little bit dicey. I would say the 3 biggest sort of items or stories. You can't ignore the Hyde versus Adore Battle Royale. That may have been the biggest K-drama that was not on Netflix. And it's got bits, unfortunately, of sort of legal UFC aspects to it. This blew up last year right around this time, and it's still ongoing, and the dust still hasn't cleared. And so, you know, no taking sides today, but that's definitely a big story that has a lot of ramifications and implications. The second sort of big story, actually this one I would chalk up as a highlight, is in addition to obviously the success of the Fab Four, Hybe, JYP, SM, and YG, there were some really interesting surprises in terms of bands from other music management companies that have managed to find, you know, tremendous success overseas. 2 that come to mind, or I'll slip in 3, was ATEEZ. They've done incredibly well. They're playing big festivals. They've been charting. They've been hitting #1. The girl band IVE and G-Idol. And these are bands that I don't think we talk enough about, but they had a tremendous 2024. And then the last thing, because you wanted me to talk about threes, is the fact that it's become more and more the rule rather than the exception that solo ventures or subunit ventures of existing, not broken up, but existing boy bands and girl bands have really sort of shown that, you know, artists can maintain their band image, but yet find their own image vis-a-vis through having these solo careers side by side with their band careers, and so that the synergies are becoming more apparent. And I'm going to plagiarize myself because I've said this before, I'll say it again, but a lot of these boy bands and girl bands now, when they go off on solo separate ventures and then come back together again, they used to be boy bands and girl bands, but after their solo, you know, endeavors, they're coming back as supergroups. And I think it's only building not only the brand value of the band, the companies, but for the artists themselves.
I see, and hopefully we'll see more of that this year as well. As always, Bernie, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts today. And Chloe, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you.
Right, on that note, we end this edition of Press Perspective. See you same time tomorrow. Thank you for watching.
How to survive in Korea. Workplace. Step 1. Lunchtime. The most important morning routine is to check